Okay, let me just.
Including myself. How are you?
Oh, not really. Okay, last time we left off at Perek Bey's Pasuk Tesvav, so we'll just give a quick segue review type thing so we can move forward. Hashem had created man, a combination of body from the earth, soul blown in from Hashem, created a garden in Eden with beautiful grapefruit trees and the like, a bunch of rivers that we will get back to eventually. And then we said that Hashem took Adam, put him in the garden to work it and to guard it. Okay, and that was the last thing we focused on, the working and the guarding of the garden, which simply would mean to take care of the garden, which again, then we said we all should become farmers. Good joke over there, that because we are here to apparently farm. And then we explained that grammatically, it's superior to understand the working and the guarding to refer to the soul, which was mentioned 4 verses earlier, because that's both feminine. If it refers to the garden, then it's going to refer to the laws relating to the garden. But we prefer to say that it refers to the soul. And what we are told to do is to guard and to work our soul, because ultimately our soul is the real us. We discussed how in this state, we tend to look at our body as the real person. We always say we're hungry, right? I'm hungry, but you're not really hungry. Your body's hungry. And you say, like we should learn, you should learn Torah. I need to learn Torah because that's my soul. That's what I am. So that is what we are here to do, to work that soul, to connect to Hashem, which we'll talk more about in a few minutes, what that's all about. Then Hashem gives the command. And the command is, and this is how the working and the guarding of the soul is going to be. Vayitzav, next pasuk Zayin. Vayitzav Hashem Elokim ala Adam lemor. Here's your command. Mikol eitz hagan achol tochel. That is your mitzvahs aseh. This would be the paradigm for the 248 positive commandments, all in I would say a nutshell, but in a fruit shell, whatever. Eat the fruit. What does it mean to eat the fruit? So besides for the simple shot, what it says, eat the fruit, we know the fruit were nechmad l'marev v'tov l'maychal. They were good to look at and good to eat. Hashem was telling Adam, take the fruit and contemplate them. Eat them means to consume every element about them. And when you consume the fruit and you contemplate the incredible wisdom that goes into a fruit, the incredible miracle that goes into the nourishment of that body, so you can literally spend certainly semesters, if not a lifetime, exploring either one of those avenues, whether it be botany and arboretumism, whatever that would be, the study of trees, or the nutritional sciences, to see exactly what it means to have trees and to nourish the body. Hashem is telling Adam, you've got to learn, you got to think, you got to connect, you got to see the greatness of Hashem. Thank Hashem for the pleasant taste, all the things that have to do with connecting to Hashem with your mind. In a nutshell, all the mitzvos, bein adam l'makom, between us and Hashem, that involve positive action. We have it now that we are in the post-Adam era as 248 separate commands, but Adam had it all really zeroed in to the eating of the fruit, which again, to the best of our understanding, would be the contemplation and the understanding of Hashem's greatness. I've heard from Rabbi give the example that for Adam, with his intelligence and his understanding, the garden of fruit and different trees would be like lahavdil, to compare a great Torah scholar in a library full of Torah books, where he would then plumb the depths of the Torah books to understand all about God. There wasn't a Torah per se in that way. Adam was able to do that from the creation itself. And that's what Adam was meant to do, work the soul. What we would compare to all the positive mitzvos. Then comes the next thing Adam has to do, again, being a microcosm for mankind. Next verse, after you have the positive command to eat from all the trees in the garden, except one. Me'etz hadas tov v'ra, that one tree of knowledge, good and bad, lo sochal mimenu, that you can't eat. Because if you eat from that, you are going to take something from the world, and I don't want you to do that. And ki b'yom achalcha, and on the day you eat it, mimenu mos tamus, you're going to die. All right, so there's so much to say, so let's take one thing at a time. It's not that the Eitz Hadas necessarily is bad for you, per se. Okay, this has been Adam Lamakom, it's between me and you, says Hashem. But you know why it's bad for you? Because I said you can't eat from it. You have to understand that in order to demonstrate that everything that you do is connected to, and in order to bring you closer to Hashem, then you have to understand there are certain things that you can't do. Now, you might understand the reason why you can't do it. You may not understand the reason you may not do it, but you can't do it because I said you can't do it. And it's going to get into the issue, because when the Yetzer Hara starts talking to Adam in the form of the Nachash, the snake, he is going to make a great argument as to why it really makes sense to do this. And Hashem really doesn't say that it's bad for you, except that I said no. The rabbis say, again, similar to us, when we deal with a ben adam makom, again, ben adam we're going to get to very soon. Something like, I would say, the most simplest man to God thing that, goes through our entire life would be kashrus, right? Why is a cow shechted with a specific knife cut in a certain way any better than a cow cut in a different way? And why is a cow any better than a pig? And the truth is that with all the explanations that will be given at Taimei HaMitzvos, I don't know how long it's going to take Rabbi Cohn to get all the way into Shmini, so it's going to be a little while. We'll have to hear the Kabbalah about kashrus. But at the very basic, most simplistic level, there's nothing wrong with a pig other than Hashem said you can't eat a pig. And there's nothing right about a cow other than Hashem said to eat a cow. Had Hashem said to eat a pig and not to eat a cow, then we'd all be eating pigs and we wouldn't be eating cows. Because it's not that it's bad, it's that Hashem said you have to withhold something because that will demonstrate your connection, your allegiance, for lack of a better word, but you're willing to submit to me as the creator and thereby strengthen our connection. Obviously, there are reasons to be given as to why Hashem chose one over the other, but when it comes to many of the Bein Adam L'Makom mitzvos, it's going to come down to, at its core, because Hashem said no. That then becomes our paradigm, our microcosm, whatever word you want to use, for all the 365 lo saseis, although I'm being imprecise, because I'm really talking specifically about the Bein Adam L'Makom, the man and God element, man and man mitzvos, we haven't touched on yet, for the very simple reason is there are no other people yet, but they're coming very, very soon. But Hashem now has Adam in the garden and says, you need to work your soul. You need to guard your soul. You work your soul by eating from the garden, taking from the world and seeing Hashem, connecting to Hashem, using the world, benefiting from the world. There is no, in other religions, you have the idea of, sitting a monk sitting up on a mountaintop, depriving himself of like that. There's no, in Judaism, there is no concept of depriving yourself for the sake of depriving yourself. There were those who deprived themselves to fix what they thought was a misuse of their desires or whatever. But all things being equal, Hashem says, black and white, eat from the apples. You can eat. Eating is good. Eating is good. You'll enjoy. Use the world. You're put on the world to engage in it and to use it to connect to Hashem, but not those things I say you can't do. And that's the Shomra. That's the guarding of the Neshama. And Hashem now has laid out in Psukim Tezvav and Tezayin for Adam exactly what he needs to do. He needs to interact with the world, pull out all the good, and just avoid the little just, right? Just avoid what you're not allowed to have. Seems simple enough. Because Hashem says, if you do that, you're not going to die. Now, dying, we said last week, based on what life is, dying is the separation of the soul and the body. It's very important to note, Hashem does not tell Adam, if you eat from this, you are going to be spiritually cut off. He doesn't say that. He says most times, most means you'll die. Means your soul will leave your body. Because ideally, the soul was never meant to leave the body. The soul was meant to elevate, purify the physicality of the body, and then transcend to a different level, which that goal still never changed. That is the resurrection of the dead goal. It was the concept of there needing to be a resurrection after death is because the goal never was for there to be a soul without a body in the ultimate, pleasure connection to Hashem. The idea was that the soul would elevate the body and the body would be purified, whatever that means, to connect to Hashem, soul and body together on earth, Gan Eden, whatever that would look like. That goal never changed. That will still be the ultimate end. What ended up happening is it was supposed to happen right away. Just Adam was going to take from the world, work his soul, guard it from the negative, okay, purify the soul to the point that the soul would overtake the body, whatever that means, whatever it will be in the resurrection era, and there will never be death because the soul will never need to leave the body. But if you sin, says Hashem, if you don't guard the soul, it's not that the soul is going to be cut off for this sin. The soul is going to separate from the body. And what's going to happen is the whole process is going to have to be much different. For a person to succeed, they are going to need to live a life, eventually have the soul separate from the body, then have the body disintegrate into the ground, and then be recreated in a purified form so that then the soul can then rejoin the body and purify it for that ultimate goal. So what Hashem is telling Adam is, if you don't sin, if you do everything right, the ultimate glorious end of world of Olam Haba that we refer to, the pleasure of connecting to Hashem, body and soul together, would have happened right away, so to speak, like relatively soon. But if not, then there's going to be a whole drawn out process in which the soul is going to have to leave the body. In the time that it leaves the body, the body goes into the ground. The soul goes to what we refer to as Olam Haba, Gan Eden, Olam HaNeshamas, the world of souls. waiting for the time when the world at a whole, because not just when Adam sins, not just Adam's body gets messed up, as we will see, the whole world gets messed up. So ultimately, there has to be a tikkun, a fixing of the world, of Adam, of the whole transgression, and that involves death and resurrection. So, and that's what Hashem lays out for Adam, again, right in, we have the 17th pasuk of the second parak. It's all like the entire purpose and future is all laid out to Adam. That's what it's going to be. But there's one thing missing, which is Hashem has not given Adam the recipe for purification and completion, because Adam is only able to connect to Hashem through the positive use of the garden, the tree, the apple, the fruit, whatever, and to avoid the transgression of eating that fruit. That's what we would refer to as connecting to Hashem intellectually, making that mind connection to Hashem. But the action connection, the connection where we act like Hashem, so that is missing. And in order to be, we talked about this last week, in order to get the full good, you have to emulate Hashem as much as possible. The Bein Adam Makom mitzvos, that will allow us to connect to Hashem and intellectually be connected to Hashem. But the emulation of Hashem, being a creator, being a provider, being a giver, that's not going to work if there is no one to give to, no one to provide for. So Hashem sees, and it's written in the sense like he woke up one day and said, whoa, wait a second, I forgot something. But it's meant to be done that way. Not, of course, Hashem had everything planned out, but it's for us to read and get that there are stages here. There are two different approaches. There's our mind connecting to Hashem, emulating Hashem by thinking like Hashem, praising Hashem, thanking Hashem, having Hashem on our minds. And then there is doing like Hashem. And that's the entire part of the Torah, which is the Bein Adam l'Chaveiro, which has not yet come into play, except it does in Pasuk Yud Ches. Now that Hashem has told Adam, you got your soul, you got to work it, you got to guard it, you have your mitzvahs asay, learn from the fruit, avoid the fruit you're not supposed to eat. Okay. Vayomer Hashem Elokim, wait a second. Lo tov heyos Adam levado. It's not good for man to be alone. I suppose the simple way, I haven't been in first grade in a long time, but I guess the way it would be taught to a 6-year-old would be, it's not good to be alone. We all like friends. We don't like to be by ourselves. We don't feel it. And that's all true, but it's totally misses what it means that it's not good to be alone. What it means is it's not good to be alone because you can't emulate Hashem if you're alone. I'll prove it to you. Guess what Hashem did? He created a world in order to provide and to give, because something, Hashem, who is all good, wants to share that good. So if we're to emulate Hashem, we have to also want to share that good. So we have to be able to create, and we have to be able to give, and we have to be able to provide. And if we have no other people, we certainly are not providing to Hashem. He doesn't need anything from us. So Hashem says, it's not good for man to be alone. Again, this is not just, it's not good, it doesn't feel good, we don't like being lonely. This is the entire purpose of creation doesn't exist if you don't have community, if you don't have family, if you don't have society. Because you can't do what Hashem did. Hashem created, and you can't create by yourself. Therefore, Asa lo ezer kenegdo, I'm going to make him a marriage partner. And that marriage partner is going to, as we'll see in a few psukim, produce offspring. And then you're going to have a community, a family first, a community, a city, a society. And now, Adam, you will have the chance to fully purify your body, work your soul, because you are going to have a partner who you can really work with, or you can really mess up with. And that becomes the great challenge of emulating Hashem, not in thought, but in deed and in action. So the creation element, okay, that's more of a biological thing. You get together with a husband and wife, they get together, they have a kid. But the whole providing, the whole idea of, and it transforms the idea of any relationship, whether it be a husband, wife, father, son, mother, daughter, father, daughter, mother, son, whatever it is, friends. That other person in your life, whatever it is, that's the person who you have the opportunity. They're there only because, again, Hashem says, you know why they're there? Because without them, you could think from today to tomorrow and become Hashem in thought, but you can never act like Hashem. They're your opportunity. Are you going to help them? Are you going to help them achieve? Are you going to provide for them? Are you going to support them? Then you're like Hashem. Are you going to steal from them? Are you going to make them feel bad? Are you going to knock them down? Then you're the opposite of Hashem. They then become your opportunity to be, it's your free will, to emulate Hashem in deed or to emulate Hashem in action. To not be like Hashem in deed. So Hashem sets it up for Adam. You're going to be in the garden, and that's going to take care of, that's going to take care of half the battle. But if you're alone, then you are going to miss out. I'm going to make you a partner. You're going to build a world with that woman. And that's going to be, again, it doesn't have to be husband and wife. It's certainly a great example of it. But anytime you have two people interacting, that's the opportunity to emulate Hashem or chas v'shalom, to misuse that and not be like Hashem. And now it's laid out for Adam. What we have is the entire Torah of Ben Adam L'Makom, Ben Adam L'Chaveiro, like if you want to leave the 10 Commandments, the 5 that are between us and God, the 5 that are between us and man, sets everything up as this is what you need to do to work your soul. For Adam, it was really, crystallized into like a very, direct thing. It's take the fruit and learn from it, avoid that tree, and interact positively with your wife and build a family. Okay, for us, for us, it's the 613 mitzvos that are the same general idea. Yeah.
So I don't even know if I'm asking this correctly, but from reading the pasuk where it says that you should do good and you should eat the apples and enjoy yourself and all that. However, if you eat from the Eis Hadas, then you'll die, or whatever it means to die. I know we talked about it, right?
So, right.
Is it fair to say that if you follow the rules, then you'll live? If you don't follow the rules, you'll die. Point blank?
Yeah, I mean, to a degree. I mean, for Adam, yeah, to a degree. I mean, in so much as that there weren't that many of them.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, I'm just, because what's triggering for me when I'm thinking about it is I don't know if it's even accurate, or maybe I misunderstood, but growing up, I always heard that there's many different reasons why people die. We can't explain it, but there's also an idea that if somebody sort of like ticked off all their boxes, they did everything they're supposed to do, which is a positive thing.
Right.
Then that's it. They're going, they die and they go.
Right,
Maybe that's incorrect.
So two things. Once Adam sinned, mentioned this, one of the things over the Yom Narayim. The Gemara says there are 4 people who died even without a sin. Because once Adam sinned and the world changed from what we would call the pre-sin era to the post-sin era, the nature of the body and soul relationship is different, which we're going to see very soon how that played out. And therefore, the body cannot be purified fully by the soul until the body disintegrates and is recreated in its better form in the time of Tzchas Mason. So in that sense, everyone has to die. Okay, now what exactly happened with Elie Navi? What exactly happened with Sarah Bas Asher? And that, I don't know.
babies,
No, it's a different thing. As far as why other things die, right? Yeah. So then there's several different reasons why they could die, right? Which we will get to a better discussion of that when we get to Chanoch, who's going to die. He's going to be the one early death amongst the people who lived really long. So I think he dies at like 365 or something. So it's hardly that he died as a baby, but relative to 900 years old, he died really young. So then we're going to throw out some ideas there, but at its absolute end game, even if someone was sinless post-Adam, they would need to have their body separate from their soul, because the whole body-soul relationship in the post-Adam era is compromised and needs to be redone. That which someone would die, would not die based on, and we'll talk about it, they're given a allotted amount of years. Again, I don't trivialize death, but but death is the soul's leaving the body. So the question really is, why was the soul only with the body for this many years as opposed to that many years? And then they separate, but they're going to come back together, So it's the question becomes, why in 2 months as opposed to 70 years? The next question would be what was the length supposed to be for this soul and body relationship? So that all needs to be, we'll discuss that out later. But for now, it is correct to say that everyone does have to die, just because the body-soul relationship now is imperfect as far as the body is concerned. And the body needs to come, separate, be regenerated, and come back in the future. So that is in order to achieve the ultimate goal of connecting to Hashem, body and soul together, that Adam had the opportunity to do but didn't do, that we will all in Hashem do sometime in the future. But that's more of a global thing, and the individual's particular neshama stay in their body and what causes it to leave at a specific time versus a different time. So we'll talk about more of that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we were supposed to be eternal,
Yes,
how would that?
we're eternal anyways. I'm only gonna badge, I want to badger the point to make the point. Nothing changed with our eternality. If you really want to say we were meant never to separate soul and body, that's correct. But again, this is important, because it's besides the fact that it's true, but we have to unlearn not that we've learned of our essence, because we look in the mirror and we don't see our soul, we see our body. Our soul is us. The soul, unless there is an Isser Kares done without tshuva, on purpose, all kinds of other terrible things, which hopefully is not relevant to anyone who we know, the soul's not going anywhere. Death doesn't, it just leaves the body and then goes back to the body. So we is our soul. The soul is eternal in either case. The only difference is, do we have to go through a process of separation and rejoining, or would it have been just together? But there's nothing not eternal about us. That never changed.
Okay,
The soul is eternal.
So if souls came joined with bodies,
Yes,
and that union was eternal,
it was supposed to be eternal.
how would that, would there have been a limited number
Of descendants. All right, so that they're totally theoretical because it didn't play out, but the commentators debate on just how many children and generations there were supposed to be before everything then became, became so super spiritual and was connection, just the period, what we would call, in Jewish thought, we refer to our life now as the life of doing. That would be the life of reward. We live that each week, like the 6 days of doing, and then 7th day is Shabbos. That's like the reward. We don't do stuff on Shabbos. We prepare for Shabbos. So that's like the mushal we all live in on a weekly basis to drive this point home. So the commentators debate just how many generations we're supposed to be. And there's even a statement in the Gemara of what one of the Amoras say, that we have to thank Adam, and we'll talk more about this as we go along, with whether or not Adam's sin it was obviously wrong and bad, but there are those who say it was part of that's how it was supposed to be type of thing. So there's an Amor who says we have to give thanks to Adam. So he says, what do you mean we give thanks to Adam? Without Adam, we wouldn't be alive. We never would have been born, because Adam would have purified himself in a few generations. We never would have lived many years later. So again, there's this idea that, yeah, to a degree, there would have been descendants, because again, Adam could not have fully perfected himself without family, a society at some level, but no, it would not have been generations of generations of generations. So that's the Talmudic opinion, that we give thanks to Adam, so to speak, because his sin allowed us to exist. Okay, I would say on a Kabbalistic level, that it needs to be understood. It means we really all are part of Adam's soul, whatever that means. And it means what the Amora means is we get to exist independently. We would have existed as part of him, but okay, that's way more deeper than I'm comfortable dealing with. But yes, there is an idea that there would have been a limited number of people. What that would have been, I don't know.
So when Gan Eden was created as a perfect world. Correct. But there was no concept at all, no fail-safe method of teshuva.
So it's interesting because the Talmud says that tshuva preceded the world. Okay, so this becomes an interesting debate, which is if Adam did what he had to do, then there would not have been a need for tshuva. Everything would have gone right the first time. But Hashem, before created the whole system of what happens if it goes wrong. Can there be a way to rectify it? And tshuva is the answer, yes. And in truth, the rivers. We might not get fully into it, but we won't go to 9 o'clock until I get to the rivers a little bit. The rivers are there because the rivers are the way to get back. Because you're right, in the way the Torah sets up is Gan Eden, which is definitely a physical garden on earth, would have been and should have been man's place of dwelling, and ultimately would have been purified and perfected, and again, exactly what it looks like when the physical becomes overrun by the spiritual. Okay, we'll hopefully all find that out whenever it's the proper time. But that's what would have happened. When Adam sins, so Gan Eden in perfection gets closed off from the world. Okay, well, just to give away, because we've all seen the Torah before, so it's not like I'm giving you the end of the movie. God is going to put 2 destroying angels to guard the path to Gan Eden. That's the Gemara's way of, that's the Torah's way of saying you can't get back to this perfection in your current state. You got to go through the destroying angels, which of course is death. The body, the soul and the body have to separate. You can't get back to this perfection without going through the separation that was decreed and returning and coming back again. That's plan B. But that was all set up, as were the rivers set up, to provide a fail-safe, that even if Adam messed up, that it would not be a permanent mess up. It would be a temporary mess up. And in truth, the entire subject of Bereshis is the fixing of that mess up.
Which there was no teshuva.
There was tshuva. No, Adam.
Not for Adam.
Yeah, Adam does have tshuva in the sense that okay, so I don't want to jump ahead of myself, or because let's, 1 second, let me just see. Okay, we can roll it. We can stop going forward here. Let me just do one. I want to finish the parak. Okay, let me just finish. And not, is it the parak or the aliyah? Okay, let's finish the aliyah, not the parak. So it's just one more pasuk, and then we'll try to tie up loose ends to the end of today. So then the pasuk says, now that Hashem has decided to make a partner for man, now we go through the process of the creation of the animals, and then ultimately of Chava. So we have Vayitzar Hashem Elokim min ha'adam kol chayes hasadeh, that's called Of Hashemayim. All the animals are created, They're brought to Adam. Adam decides, because Adam is brilliant, not brilliant in the necessary, probably was also brilliant in the Albert Einstein type of brilliant, but he's brilliant in the sense that he understands the essence of things. And he gives each animal a name based on the essence of that animal. Like he truly hits like the core of what the animal is. Which means that a lion is an Ari. That tells us something about the nature of a lion and so on and so forth, because Adam understood, he connected to the creation itself. This would be his part of his fulfillment of his job of mentally, intellectually connecting to Hashem. And then the pasuk, the parak will end and the aliyah will start that to the end of the creation of the animals, then Chava is going to be created, and then we're going to get to the story. So I would have just liked to get to Gimel, but we could stop here. We'll run through just the end to Gimel, because next time we'll really focus on the sin and the snake and the Yetzer Hara and the like. So let's just end up with a couple things here. So first thing is, say again, what was your question? Because I wanted to.
There was no fail.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, so good.
All right, and it didn't apply to Adam.
Right. Okay, so to Adam personally. Okay, so the idea behind that would be that Adam is given a statement, which is on the day you eat it, you will die. Okay, so literally, Adam should have died right away. Adam ends up dying 930 years later, and allows himself to have the children that will ultimately rectify his transgression. So the simple understanding would be that Adam was given a chance to make a complete tshuva right off the bat. We are going to learn that he did not take advantage of that. We will show that in the psukim, because you are correct. Adam should have had, tshuva existed, Adam should have had that ability. He messed up on that. That sealed the deal for him personally, but he was able at a point to do a tshuva that we connect to really what we do on Rosh Hashanah, that Adam was judged. And, Adam was able to get Hashem to redefine the day you eat, you will die. Because the way the Torah works, we see this many different times. For the most, I would say the most famous is the Jews were supposed to be in Egypt for 400 years. They ended up only being in Egypt for 210 years because Hashem redefined the 400 years from a different point in history. To a degree, we see this by the 70 years between the first temple's destruction and the rebuilding. Exactly how to calculate those 70 years was in constant flux. We will point this out that Esav could have been the partner to, I get Ray Combs discussing that a little bit also. Esav could have been the partner to Yaakov, and that was coded in the Torah. Esav failed, and therefore we reinterpreted a verse in the Torah. When we get there, we'll explain. So the concept that there's a way that it could be, and then the way it ends up being. So it could have been that Adam did a total tshuva, and I don't know what that would have looked like, but Adam himself could have rectified everything because tshuva was there. We will point out the two stages in which he doesn't do that. Then ultimately he does do an element of tshuva, which gets the day you die to be redefined as a human day to a godly day. And King David says in Tehillim, we say this every Shabbos, right, that one of our days is like 1,000 of your days. So however that calculation works, there is this concept that one human day is 1,000. One human day is like 1,000 days for Hashem. So Hashem, through the tshuva, takes this day of death thing, which really should be a basic question. God tells Adam, when you eat from this, you're going to die that day. It says it in black and white, right? B'yom, on the day you eat this, b'yom